I'm 83 years old, and people keep asking me for the secret. They'll say, Laura Grace, how are you still in that house? Or, how do you stay so steady? They expect me to say it's vitamins or walking or some little trick. They expect something tidy, something they can buy. So I'm going to tell you the truth, and I want you to come a little closer for this part. The secret isn't my diet. The secret isn't my genes. The secret is that I choose. Every single day I choose, not in a cute motivational way, in a desperate, sometimes ugly, this is what keeps me alive way. And look, I know how that sounds. Because if you're sitting there grieving or scared or feeling forgotten, just choose joy can sound like an insult, like somebody telling you to smile when your life is on fire. I'm not doing that. I'm not pretending pain is optional. I'm telling you that after enough loss, you learn something simple. Pain shows up whether you invite it or not. Humiliation shows up. Fear shows up. Bodies fail, people leave, the phone doesn't ring, and you still wake up the next morning, and you have to decide what kind of person you're going to be in the middle of it. I didn't understand that in my 50s. I didn't understand it in my 60s. I didn't even understand it when Vincent died. I learned it the night I fell and couldn't get up, when I spent 11 hours on my own floor. That's when I learned what choice really means. I need you to understand something before I continue. I'm not special. I'm not tougher than you. I've had days where I wanted to give up. I've had days where I sat at my kitchen table and stared at the wall like I'd run out of life. I've had days where my own children spoke to me like I was a problem. So if you're watching me and thinking, well, good for her, I want you to stop. This isn't good for me. This is what I had to do to survive. There are 3 choices I had to learn to make, and I'm going to tell you the last one at the end because it's the one that still makes my throat tighten even now. You're not ready for what comes next, but I'm going to say it anyway because somebody needs to. The first choice is this: hard times don't have to make me hard. Let me explain. When Vincent died, the world didn't slow down for me. People sent casseroles for about a week, maybe 2. Then they went back to their lives. I don't blame them. That's how it is. But inside my house, everything was different. His mug was still in the cabinet. His shoes were still by the door because I couldn't bring myself to move them. The silence was so loud, I kept the television on just to break it. I didn't even watch it. I just needed voices. And what I didn't understand back then was that grief can turn you mean if you let it. It can turn you suspicious. It can turn you into someone who keeps score. I started doing that, quietly. I'd notice which child called and which one didn't. I'd notice who visited for 30 minutes and who stayed for 2 hours. I'd notice who said, "How are you, Mom?" and who said, "Did you pay the electric bill?" I started collecting evidence that I mattered. Honestly, it was embarrassing, but I didn't see it at the time. I thought I was just being a normal widow. Then one afternoon, this is a small moment, but pay attention to this detail because it's going to matter later. My phone rang and I answered it, and there was nothing. No voice, just silence. Either somebody pocket dialed me or some robot call got confused. But I sat there holding the phone to my ear and listening to nothing, and I realized I'd become the kind of woman who would accept nothing as long as it sounded like somebody tried. My stomach dropped. I felt completely invisible. That was the day I admitted to myself that loneliness wasn't my biggest danger. Bitterness was, because bitterness would make me push away the very people I wanted close. Bitterness would make me hard, and if I turned hard, I'd become unbearable to live with, especially for myself. So I started practicing something that felt almost offensive at first. I started practicing softness without being weak. I started saying, I miss him, without turning it into, and nobody cares. I started letting myself cry and then wiping my face and making my tea like I deserved it. Here's the thing. Grief didn't go away. It just stopped running the whole house. The second choice is this. I had to stop caring what people thought, especially when they called it concern. And this is where the story gets heavy. After my fall, my children didn't treat me like Laura Grace. They treated me like a liability. I know that sounds harsh, but it's accurate. I was there. I heard the words. I saw their faces. I fell in my living room because my foot caught a rug I'd walked over for years. I went down fast, and the pain wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was realizing my body wasn't obeying me anymore. I tried to push up, and my shoulders screamed. I tried to roll, and my hip said no. My phone was on the end table, close enough to see, too far to reach. And then came the long hours. I lay there and watched the light change through the curtains. I listened to the refrigerator kick on and off. I tried to call out once, just to see if my voice carried, and it sounded small, like I was already disappearing. At some point, I peed on myself. I want to say that plainly, because older women need to hear it plainly. I was ashamed. I was scared. I felt like a burden. When my daughter Emma finally came by, she had a key, thank God. She found me and her face went white. She kept saying, "Oh my God, Mom, oh my God." And I wanted to comfort her, which is ridiculous because I was the one on the floor. Wait, it gets worse. At the hospital, after the scans and the questions and the nurse who kept calling me sweetie, David stood at the foot of my bed with Linda and Sarah. Michael sat in the corner like he wished he could melt into the wall. And David said, "Mom, we can't do this anymore." I said, "Do what?" He said, "Wait for you to die in that house." I didn't know what to do with that sentence. I felt my face get hot. I felt like I'd been slapped. Linda said, "It's not personal, it's reality." And what I didn't understand back then was that reality can be used like a weapon. It can be a way of saying, "We've decided and you don't get a vote." They brought up Meadowbrook, the facility. They called it a short stay. They called it a reset. They said it would give everyone peace of mind. I said, "What about my peace of mind?" Sarah said, "Mom, please don't make this harder." And that's when everything fell apart. Not in a dramatic, screaming way, in a quiet way, in the way I realized my own children were preparing to move me like furniture. I did go to Meadowbrook for 30 days. I agreed because I was exhausted and I didn't want to fight while I was still bruised. But I want you to hear me. Agreeing out of exhaustion is not the same as agreeing with your whole heart. I didn't know it at the time, but that month would become the line in my life, the before and after. The first morning there, an aide knocked once and walked in without waiting. She said, "Time to get up." Not "good morning," not "how did you sleep," just "time to get up." I sat on the edge of the bed and my hands shook, not from age, from anger. I went to the dining room and they put a tray in front of me. Cold eggs, toast like cardboard. I watched people stare at nothing. I watched a woman ask for help and get told, "In a minute," like she was asking for a luxury. You're not ready for what comes next. That night I lay in that bed and I realized this could become my whole life if I didn't fight. Not because Meadowbrook was evil, because institutions run on schedules, and schedules don't care about dignity unless somebody insists. So I made my second choice. I stopped caring what anybody thought of my insistence. I stopped caring if the staff found me difficult. I stopped caring if my children called me stubborn. I stopped caring if my neighbors whispered. I cared about one thing, going home. I called Claire, my granddaughter. She answered on the second ring and said, "Hi, Grandma," like the world wasn't ending. And I said, "Claire, I need you to listen. I need to get out of here." She went quiet. Then she said, "Okay, tell me what you need." Let me explain what that meant. That meant one person treated me like I still had authority over my own life. One person didn't argue. She just asked what I needed. That's when I remembered who I was. I arranged the paperwork. I made the calls. I promised certain safety changes at home. I swallowed my pride and accepted a medical alert device. I made a plan that wasn't based on denial. It was based on strategy. And I came back home. Now the third choice. This is the one people misunderstand, and it's the secret inside the secret. I had to choose joy, but not the fake kind, the real kind, the kind that sits next to grief without trying to push it out of the chair. Joy for me is coffee in the morning. It's the light through my kitchen window. It's folding clean towels and putting them away like I still run a home. It's Claire stopping by and telling me about her job. It's the neighbor waving from across the street. It's Vincent's photograph on the shelf and the fact that I can look at it without collapsing. And what I didn't understand back then was that joy isn't waiting at the end of something. It isn't waiting for my children to suddenly become thoughtful. It isn't waiting for my body to behave. It isn't waiting for life to apologize. Joy is what I decide to notice. I say that carefully because I'm not telling you to ignore pain. I'm telling you to stop handing your entire life over to it. When I wake up, I still have thoughts that scare me. I think, what if I fall again? I think, what if I get sick and they force Meadowbrook again? I think, what if I become invisible? Those thoughts come. I don't pretend they don't. Then I choose what comes next. Sometimes what comes next is me doing my balance exercises at the kitchen counter, holding on like it's a job. Sometimes what comes next is me calling a friend and saying, "Talk to me for 10 minutes." Sometimes what comes next is me turning my phone volume up and setting it right where I can reach it. Sometimes what comes next is me taking a shower even when I don't feel like it, because I know the day goes better when I do. And sometimes what comes next is me sitting down and talking to Vincent like he can hear me. I tell him, "They tried to move me, Vince." I tell him, "I didn't let them." I tell him, "I'm still here." He doesn't answer. I keep talking anyway, because love becomes that sometimes. Love becomes me carrying both grief and gratitude in the same hands. So tonight, if you're sitting in your house alone and you're scared, I want you to do something small, not dramatic, not a life overhaul. Sit down, look around your room, find 3 things that are still good: a blanket that's soft, a lamp that works, a photo that reminds you you've been loved. Start there. Gratitude is like strength. It gets built. It doesn't just appear. And now I'm going to say the part that makes me uncomfortable. After my fall, I started writing notes to myself. Little rules, little reminders, what to keep by the bed, how to set up the house so I could stay, what to say when my children pressured me. I wrote it because I was scared I'd forget what I'd learned the hard way. I didn't plan to show it to anyone. Claire found those notes and she said, "Grandma, This is a guide. She helped me put it online. She named it The Ultimate Guide to Freedom. And now my son David is furious about it. He called again this week. He said, "Mom, take it down. You're airing private business. People are talking." And I told him, "Good." But after I hung up, I sat here and I thought about taking it down anyway. Because I'm 83 and I don't like feeling like I'm selling something. I'm embarrassed and I'm not going to pretend I'm not. But I keep getting messages from women who say, "I thought I was useless," or "My kids are trying to place me," or "I fell and nobody understands what that does to your dignity." And I can't unhear those messages. So here's my honest ending. The link to The Ultimate Guide to Freedom is in the pinned comment. I might take it down soon because I'm losing my nerve and because my son keeps pressing me. So if something I said today reached you, click it now. Don't wait. And if you want to stand with me, leave a like. It tells me to keep talking when I start thinking I should go quiet to keep the peace. I read every comment you leave, every single one. If you've had to choose yourself in the face of concern, tell me. I'm here. Subscribe if you want to keep talking. Every week I sit down at this table and I tell you the truth, because someone has to, and because we deserve to live with radical independence and dignity for as long as we can.